think this is everybody we had last week, except my dad will be coming in a little later on. Make sure the screen's on. So we'll go ahead and get started. Yes, I started the recording, but I got to make sure the screen's right first. There we go. All right. Hope everybody's doing good. I was told that we need to start a divorce class now after the homework I gave y'all last week. I don't know how that went. Hopefully it went well. Hopefully you got together and at least everybody kind of has a picture of where we're at financially. Again, I don't know. There might be you guys might be knocking it out of the park. We might be in some trouble. I don't know where anybody is. So hopefully we'll be able to look and help everyone. So there's been some miscommunication about the timing of this class. Okay, you guys got here early today. Here's what we're gonna do. My phone number is on the screen. Okay, if you do not have my number, if you will text me your name, and then I will do a group chat next week, and just don't even worry about what Pastor Brian says. Okay, don't even listen to him on Sunday morning. Don't look at the bulletin. I will send out a text. It's gonna be 6 o'clock, but I don't know. Last week it said 6. This time it said 5. But last week it said 6, because I've been telling everybody 5. And I looked and it said 6, and then I said, well, let's just do 6 then. Yeah. And so, unless something else works better for you guys. I'm pretty flexible. We can kind of do whatever, but this is what we're going to do now. We'll do this, and I'll send out a text, and it'll be good. And that's good. All right.
Well, last week I was confused because I heard you say 5, so I got here at 5 and nobody was here, so I left.
See, that's the problem. Now I'm going to send out a group text. All right. Now I'm going to rule this. Oh, this is probably going to be coming up on my phone. I don't know if they'll see that in the video or not, but cool. Very good. Very good. So we introduced last week. We kind of laid a foundation of just what the Bible says about money, and then we talked about just getting on the same page with your spouse. And how big of a deal that is, how big of a role that plays with finances, because if you're not rolling in the same direction, then we're going to be in real trouble in a hurry, and the marriage is going to be in trouble. So I know that was difficult for some, maybe getting to see the picture, but hopefully we have a better idea of where we're at and how we can move forward. So I introduced last week, we watched a little bit of the video. I want to talk a little bit more about where these ideas are coming from, and then we're going to outline the actual steps of the principles, the baby steps for the Dave Ramsey plan. So a lot of you knew who Dave Ramsey was, but just kind of a background, if you don't know, of why he does this, why he does finance, why he started this class. He was someone who, when he was very young, he was in real estate, and he was buying houses with either no money down or like 1%, 2%, 3% down, and flipping them or renting them, and he was just buying up all kinds of real estate. And I think the story goes when he was like 27, he owned like $4 million of real estate at that time, and he was doing all this stuff, renting it out. But the bank he was going through, the ownership switched over, the bank came under new management, and the bank called all his loans, called all his notes, and gave him 90 days to pay all of these loans, and he didn't have any money. He owned all the real estate, but he didn't have equity in any of these, or he had very little. He didn't have $4 million to cover it. He was trying to use these to cash flow. So he had to pay $4 million in 90 days and didn't have it, right? And went, completely broke. That's like really broke. When you're, I don't think anyone here is 4 million in the hole. I hope not, at least. Maybe in the hole, but you may not be 4 million in the hole. And so then he was like, all right, I got to figure out something different. And he started studying. He says he studied the Bible and other principles, and he put this kind of plan together, and he's used it to help people get out of debt and get into at least peaceful situations with money, and helped a lot of people become very, very wealthy following these steps. So that's kind of a background of where these steps came from, and I'll go ahead and walk through the steps for you. So it's set up where there's 7 steps. The first 3 are done individually. 4 through 6 are all kind of done at the same time, and then 7 is, I guess, the final destination, I guess is what you say. So the first step is this. First step is have $1,000 starting emergency fund. So this means if you, and by the way, not all of these we did, not all of these I did exactly or I agree with perfectly. I'm going to teach his the exact way he would teach it, and then I'll go through and give my opinion a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and write this. The baby step 1 is $1,000 saved. All right. So this means if you're someone who, if you don't have any money in savings, what he would say is you're finding stuff to sell. You are finding a way to get $1,000. If you already have money in savings, he would say take 1,000 of it, set it aside, and that is your starter emergency fund for just when things happen and life happens and, you know, emergencies happen all the time, right? He wants a little bit of a buffer between you and all the problems while you start the rest of the plan, right? And that's going to go up as the plan goes, but this is where you start with. So if you have no money, save 1,000 somehow, and if you have more than that saved, let's say you have 5,000 in savings or 10,000, whatever you have, set 1,000 aside, and that is the emergency fund. So baby step 2 then is to get out of all debt using the debt snowball method. This is except your mortgage. Your mortgage isn't included in this. This is things like credit card debt. This is things like college debt. This is medical debt. This is car loans. This is personal loans. All kind of stuff like that. That is baby step 2. Get out of debt, and that's going to be what we talk mostly about next week. We're going to spend a lot of time on debt and how to work with that next week. But that's baby step 2. Baby step 3 is this. Let's see. Baby step 3, once you're out of debt, you get your fully funded emergency fund. So we started with $1,000. This is 3 to 6 months of expenses. That is baby step 3. Yeah. All right. So these are, so I say 3 to 6 months of expenses. There's not a number attached to this. It's kind of based on your lifestyle, right? If you have low expenses, this can be a lower number. If you have high expenses, it can be a higher number. Why the variation between 3 to 6 months? In my mind, some of it depends on like how stable your job is. If you have a regular income, things like that. If you have children, right, you want that to be higher on the higher end. If you don't have children, you probably don't need it to be as high, that type of thing. But so these first 3, the way he would teach it is this. When you're going through these 3, it is very strict. And he would say, you're not going on vacation, you're not going out to eat, his thing he says is beans and rice, rice and beans. That's what he says, right? Now maybe that hits you and you're like, I'm not doing that. That's fine. I'm teaching it how he would teach it. This is like, you are doing whatever you can. You're selling stuff. You are doing whatever you can to get through these first 3. This is the hard part of the baby steps. If you can get through these 3, it relaxes a whole lot once you get to baby step 4, okay? Because once you have these things, if you don't have any debt and you have 6 months of expenses, you have a very peaceful life financially, right? Even if you don't have anything else saved, you at least have peace in your life if you're right here, okay? Baby step 4, 5, and 6 all happen together. It's you start investing 15% into retirement, you save for your kids' college, and you pay off your house. These are all combined. So 4, 5, and 6. That's 15%. College and pay off house. All right. And then like he said, these first 3, it's very strict. He would say gazelle intense is the way he would say it. We'll probably hear him say that at some point. But it's very intense. And then once you get here, you're much more relaxed, right? You're going on vacations. You're doing all kind of, you're having fun. You're doing all this stuff. But he would say those are the next things. And then the last thing is just, once you're here, goodness gracious, you've got no debt, emergency fund, you got a paid off house, you're not saving for any college or anything like that, and you've invested 15%, you're just building wealth and being generous at that point. Because at that point, you really don't have anything to worry about if you're in that situation. And that's like, that's the dream right there. But so these are the baby steps, exactly how he would teach them. Okay? And I may pull up a video of him doing an overview so he can explain exactly why he says all these things, or exactly why he has it in this order. But I think it's pretty good. Shelby and I did this pretty closely, okay? So now that I've laid out the steps for you, I'll at least tell you where I have a little disagreement with it, right? I will say this: if you do this, it'll work, right? If you do this and you don't have any really big emergencies during this time, it will work, okay? Like, it's millions, when I say millions, I mean millions of people have done it and have got out of debt and got to great places financially, okay? Here's where it scares me a little bit, all right? The one that scares me the most is this right here, $1,000 emergency fund to start with, okay? Especially if you have children, especially, like, there's a lot of things about that, man, $1,000 is really not a lot for emergency. I mean, how many emergencies are less than $1,000, right? He would say it's for, like, you got to get a new tire, or you got just the little ankle biter things is kind of his idea and why he did this. But to me, that's really low. He came up with this in the 90s, right? And he hasn't gone up. Like, inflation's gone way up since then. Things are way more expensive, but he sticks to it. He says $1,000 wasn't enough then, and it's not enough now, right? It's just there just for the little things, and hopefully it's going to push you to get out of debt even faster, is his thought. What I would do if I was starting over and I had no money, if I had no money, this is a great place to start, right? If you don't have any money saved, $1,000 is a great place to start. That's where I would go, right? If I got nothing in the bank, that's fine. I'm going to try to get $1,000, right? I'll sell something, I'll do something to get that. But if I'm in a place where, yeah, I've got debt. Let's say I've got, whatever, $30,000 worth of debt, and I've got, $10,000 in my bank account, and I just pay the debt as it comes, and that's kind of how I live my life. If I'm in that situation, what I would prefer to do for baby step one is I would either want to set aside my highest health insurance deductible. That would be as low as I went. That way you can just cover any medical thing that comes up. If like you have a family plan, and let's say your deductible, I don't know, is $3,800, $4,200. If I had $10,000 sitting there, I don't think I would go all the way down to $1,000. I would probably try to go to that highest deductible, just so I know the medical stuff is covered, right? Because maybe you've been there. We all know people who medical debt is a killer. I mean, that is a killer when something really bad happens. So I would make sure I would know my highest deductible, and I would at least get there. And if not that, I might even try to do a month of expenses instead of just that $1,000. Because that $1,000, man, that does not go a long way when things really get tough. So what he would say is this. Let's go back to that situation I described. Let's say you have $30,000 worth of debt. You've just been paying it as it comes, no big deal. And let's say you got $8,000 in the bank. Based on this plan, what he would say to do is you put $1,000 aside, and then $8,000, the other $7,000, you're throwing at your debt. You're using it to pay off whatever's there, whether it be credit cards, whether it be medical debt, whatever it is, you are trying to get out of it, all right? And let me explain this, the debt snowball method, all right? So what that means is you take your debts and you list them out. You list out your debts, all right? And you look at your smallest debt, put it on the top, and kind of put them in order, smallest to largest. So if you got, we're going to look at an example I give later when we're working on budgeting. Let's say you got $3,500 in credit cards, $9,000 on one car, $15,000 on another car, $20,000 in student loans. Kind of put them in order, and you are putting all your energy paying off the smallest debt. All right? You're not looking at the interest rate. Even if one interest rate's way higher, doesn't matter. You are paying off the smallest debt no matter what. And once you pay off that one, you take the payments you were making on that debt and you put it on the second smallest. All right? And it's like a snowball. It goes from the smallest to the largest. All right? I will just mention there's another method, the avalanche method, and that is you pay off the highest interest rate first. Now, mathematically, paying off the highest interest rate first is the most beneficial because you're saving the most money on interest. The reason he suggests the debt snowball is because when you're in debt, when you have a lot of debt, it's not a math problem. It is a behavior problem. Okay? And so when you have, let's say you have 7 different debts. You got a few cars, student loan, whatever. You got several debts. When you see that 7 debts go down to 6 debts, and I actually made progress, and I paid it off, and I see the progress happening, and now I can take all that money and put it on my next debt, and then I get that one paid off, and put all that money on my next debt. When you see that, that is when the behavior starts to change, and you start to get psychological boosts. You start seeing, oh man, this is working. I can actually see it working. Whereas if you just try to do the highest interest rate, if that's the biggest debt you have, it may take a long time before you see progress. And again, these aren't math problems. This is, you didn't get in these situations because of math, right? You got in these situations because of behavior. So I agree with this. I would go with the debt snowball method. That is, in my opinion, that is the way to go. That is the way to start seeing progress. And then once you do that, and all the debt is gone other than your house, right? House is different. That's mostly the biggest expense anybody ever has, right? Outside of that, once you do that, then you're getting that 3 to 6 months of expenses. And then think about where you are at that point. You don't have any debt. You don't owe anyone money other than for your house. Nobody in the world. And you're sitting there and you have 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in, put it in a high yield savings account, right? A savings account that gets 3 to 5%. Most banks have them. If they don't, there's online ones that you can open up, and you're just going to park the money there, and it is only for emergencies, right? Going on vacation is not an emergency. Going to the beach ain't an emergency, right? Upgrading the car ain't an emergency. Now, the alternator goes out on your car. That's an emergency, right? That's when you're getting in there, and that's what makes it tough, is you just have money sitting there, not using it. Shelby and I have one. I just act like it's not even there. Even if something pops up, if there's a way I can cover it without going into that money, I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to figure it out, because that is for, like, if I lose my job, that is for one of those situations, right?
And assuming if you have to use it, you replace it as soon as
Yes, and if you have to use it, you're replacing it. Yeah, like if, let's say, whatever, 6 months of expenses for you, I don't know, let's say it's $20,000, right? And you have a $7,000 emergency, and it's down to $14,000, then you would technically, I guess, be back in baby step 3 at that point, and you're just going to replenish that. That's where I want everyone to be. Like, if you can get here, right? This stuff, to me, this is cherry on top stuff right here. And I think all of us can get there if we make good decisions. But if you can get to this one where you have that emergency fund sitting there, man, that's where financial peace comes in. That's why he calls it Financial Peace University. That's where financial peace comes in. So we're going to go through these steps. All right. Today, the rest of the night, we're going to watch him. We are going to talk about having a budget, living on a budget, actually knowing where that stuff comes with, or knowing where your money's going. And then the next 2 weeks, next week we're going to talk about debt, and then the next week we're going to talk about saving, really. Tips to save money, how you can save more money, where to put emergency funds, things like that. So we're hopefully, before Easter, we're going to be going through these first 3 steps, looking at how we can get there. And then we're going to have a 2-week break, and hopefully we can have some goals during those 2 weeks, and that'll be good. But what we're going to do the rest of the night is we're going to talk about a budget, all right? And I know, I don't know, maybe you've tried budgets before, maybe you haven't. I don't know where everyone is with that. I don't know if you've been successful with it. I don't know if it's been terrible for you. I don't know where everyone's at with that. But there's a couple reasons I find budget. So there's a couple reasons I budget. I'll say that. A couple reasons I budget. You don't have to, right? There's not a verse in the Bible that says you have to budget. A couple of the reasons I do it are a couple of the principles we took out from last week. Knowing that we are just stewards. God owns all the money. We are just stewards of it. And I think as stewards, we at least need to know where the money's going. It may not be a full monthly budget like we're going to talk about tonight, but we at least need to have an idea of where our money's going. Because so many people in here, out in our church, out in the world, have no idea where their money goes. They don't know how much they spend. They don't know where their money's going. They don't know how much they spend on each thing. I was watching a show the other day, and it's a financial show where this guy sits down with either a single person or couples and tries to help them budget, is what he does. And he sat down with them, and he was talking to this couple. They were about my age. And he said, how much money do y'all, he has all their statements and everything. He's got everything in front of him. He says, how much do y'all think you spent last month? And the girl said, probably, because I think they made $8,000. That's how much they made combined. She said, we probably spent about $6,000. And the guy said, we probably spent about $7,000. He said, so you think you spent between $6,000 and $7,000? They said, yep, probably. He said, you want to know how much you spent? $14,000. They made $9,000, spent $14,000, and thought they spent $6,000 or $7,000. I mean, if you don't at least have a plan in mind, that's another principle we brought out of the Bible last week, is to have a plan. If you don't, it doesn't have to be a monthly budget like I'm going to walk you through this week, but we at least need to know where our money's going. We at least need some way, because if we're going to live on less than we make, it's important that, one, we know how much we make, and one, know how much we spend. Okay? So that's why I do a budget. I know there's a lot of reasons people don't do it, and that's kind of what we're going to look at today. He's going to walk through, we're going to watch this clip from Dave Ramsey, and he's going to walk through kind of what it means to budget, reasons we don't budget. He's going to try to explain why you should, I guess, and then we will come back, and I'm actually going to walk us through how I budget and how Dave Ramsey would suggest budgeting, which I think is a really, really good method. So let me see if I can find the remote here. I really hope it saves in the right place. It was good last time.
Household income in North America today is $40,816. If we take 4 years of that, that would be $160,000. If you were going to build a home for $160,000, you would use one of these, wouldn't you? A blueprint. You would have all of the electrical laid out. You would have all of the heating and air system laid out. What floor covering, what wall covering, where the walls and the doors, which way they swing. Every detail would be designed before you turn the first shovel full of dirt. And yet the next 4 years of your income does not have a plan. It doesn't have a clue. It has no idea where it's going. You would never spend $160,000 on a home without all the details handled. And yet, the average one of you in here, the next 4 years of your income represents $160,000. And you don't have a plan. If you managed money for a company called You Incorporated, and your job was to manage money for You Incorporated, and you manage money for You Incorporated the way you manage money for you now, would you fire you? Oh, I see way too many hands going, You know, I mean, how do you expect to win doing that, really? I mean, honestly, you're going to get blessed when you are a blessing. That's how that's going to happen. When you become diligent, you will prosper, the scripture says. You have got to become excellent at this. That's what wealthy people do. And our budget is not a straitjacket. This is simply people telling their money what to do instead of wondering where it went. And it kind of starts with some of the basics, like keeping your checkbook balanced. Everyone got real quiet. Because some people in here have an account at Ricochet Savings and Loan. They're writing these 911 rubber checks. I know that some of you think the way you balance a checkbook is that means bringing the total down. Some of you don't even do that. I've seen you in the shopping mall. I'll see you writing a check and you're looking and the total is up here. and the checks are way down here, several layers below, and you're looking going, looks like we can get one more in, you know? You can't manage money that way and expect to succeed. You've got to quit writing rubber checks. Never, ever, ever again in your life write a check until the money is in the bank. Now that sounds really basic. It sounds like I'm teaching a 7th grade general business course. But do you understand that almost no adults follow that basic tenet? They write checks, mail them on Thursday night because they're going to get paid on Friday. They go in Friday morning, their company filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they're not issuing payroll today. So what do we have? Bounced checks. Well, there was a snafu in the direct deposit. Great. Check to make sure the direct deposit's in there if there's been a snafu a time or two. Because direct deposit messes up sometimes, doesn't it? I like direct deposit. I personally use that. But if it messes up 2 or 3 times, maybe I ought to check before I start writing checks. We have to stop and think, be just a little bit more conservative. We live so close to the edge that we absolutely cannot win. Bounced checks are a sign of crisis living, sloppy, lazy money habits. Now, some of you in here honestly do not know how to balance a checkbook. And it's sad that you can get out of school and not know that. By the way, it's on the back of your bank statement if you were to open those things, okay? And look at them. Flip it over on the back. It'll walk you right through it. But also, just in case, we have a ABC simple explanation in the addendums there in your workbook. You'll be able to go through and learn how to balance a checkbook. You need to learn how to do that. You need to teach your children how to do that. Some of you, the spouse has always done it, and you honestly, at 42 years old, don't know how. Listen, there's no shame in that. The shame is if you don't start today and say, that's enough. That's enough. It's ridiculous that I'm 52, I'm 38. It's ridiculous that I'm at that level and I don't know how to drive a car in our culture. I don't know how to balance checkbooks. You have to stop today and make the decision. I'm going to take all this mask off that quit saying I'm cool when I'm not, and sit down with your spouse and admit, I do not know how to do this. And learn, because it may be you that's left there to manage that. And then you're going to be lost as a ball in tall weeds. It's not going to be fun. Learn how to balance a checkbook. If you have to, you can even use carbon checks. I know we were doing counseling one time with a couple, and I was trying to get their checkbook to balance. I could not figure it out. I mean, it had their normal entrance. They were always bouncing checks. You know, they had their house payment, the car payment, the bank here, you know, $328, house payment, $742, and the daycare, you know, $38, the ESP, $78, and, you know, grocery store, $42. They just went on there, and I kept looking at it. Finally, I said, the only thing I can't figure out is, what is this ESP? $78. The guy says, error someplace. This is not how you balance a checkbook. Other budget busters and things that can keep you off balance are the ATM card and the debit card. Now, I don't tell you to tear those up. I tell you they're okay, but be very, very careful with them and never use them on impulses. Only use them as a part of the implementation of your overall game plan. Okay, you have to now plan your impulses, okay? There's no way around it. That's the deal if you're going to win at this money stuff. But Dave, I don't want to do a budget. Some of your spouses told you, I'm going to take you over there. Dave Ramsey's going to put you on a budget. And you're like, I don't want to get that Dave guy away from me. I don't want to do a budget, Dave. Doing a budget makes me think of bread and water. That means I'll never be able to rent another video or buy another pizza. We think of it as a straitjacket. It's none of that. A budget, a cash flow plan, a spending plan is simply you telling your money what to do. I honestly don't care what you do with your money. I'm going to give you a lot of suggestions. I'm going to give you the baby steps on how we implement what we do from here and what your best order of priority if you want to have financial peace and win are. But at the end of the day, I have found that adults are pretty intelligent if they bother to do it on purpose. It's this not bothering thing, this Gomer piling thing that messes you up. All you've got to do is bother. It doesn't have to be bread and water. You can do whatever you want to do. It's your money. All I care is you do it on purpose and you quit spending more than you make. If you'll just do that, you will start to wake up and win on some of these issues. Another reason we don't want to do a budget is a budget has been used to abuse you. Your parent or your your friend or something has said, you know, your grandparent or maybe your spouse is saying, it's not in the budget. It's not in the budget. Dave Ramsey said, it's not in the budget. Wearing you out with this stuff. They're using a budget as a tool to control. This is a control freak issue. This is not a budget problem, okay? And some of you nerds need to back off and let some of these free spirits have a little room. The elbows are going. I see them working out there, okay? And then this thing will loosen up and you'll start to do it together, because budgeting is not a method by which you make other people behave. Budgeting is a method by which you make money behave. Now, there's a big distinction there for those of you especially that are married. Another reason we don't want to do a budget is we never had one that really worked. You know, we've all tried it. You remember when you first set up housekeeping, you do the yellow pad budget. You remember the yellow pad budget? You do? Okay, let's see here. Let's see here. Student loan, Circuit City. Let's see here. Victoria's Secret. You know, you got to have the whole thing here, right? You got to, and let's see here. Rent. Oh yeah, food. You remember doing this? And you get down, you total it all up, and then you look at the income versus the outgo, and you're like, whoa, dude, there's a problem. And then you're sweat on the upper lip, and you're going, oh, how am I going to get out of this? Oh, what are we going to do? Honey, okay, we got to have a plan here, okay? Turn off the TV and get in here. Bring the remote. It's mine, too. I have the checkbook and the remote. I am ruler over all. Get in here. Now, honey, I got a plan. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to eat every other week, okay? You remember doing this stuff, right? And you finally get the thing to balance just barely, and then the car breaks the next week, and you go, this budgeting stuff, it doesn't work, right? No way, I can't do it. Why? Because you left out car repairs as a category. Cars are going to break. Maybe car repairs ought to be a standing category. Some of our households, at times, it's had to be the whole budget. You know what I'm talking about? Some months it gets completely out of control. You've got to budget a whole picture of your life. You have to address the reality of where you are on paper. When you do that, you'll start to win like you have never won before. Now, some of you go, well, I've like sort of kind of got it in my head, Dave. It's like in the Quicken. You know, I've got it in the software, and I can sort of see it, and I can tell if we're off on a percentage. No. You don't understand. You have to write it down. The whole thing. No way around it. Another reason we don't want to do a budget is paralysis of fear of what we'll find. I don't want to discover how bad it is. The bill drawer has stuff growing in there. And you reach a hand in there, you draw back, and there's no hand. You know, it's, ooh. Right? It's bad news. And sometimes it's fear of just admitting how bad we've been. We've all messed up. I've done stupid with zeros on the end. Some of you have paid some stupid tax or are about to pay some stupid tax. Stupid tax, of course, is when you do something stupid that costs you money. I have paid stupid tax with zeros on the end. I understand it. It's okay. We're all humans. We're all in this together. You're going to mess up, or you have messed up. You might as well put it down on paper, deal with where you are so you don't have to live where you are for the rest of your life. That's the idea of financial peace. I mean, one old guy, he said, you know, we finally wrote it down. We figured out what we've been spending the last several months. We've been spending $1,200 a month on cotton-picking restaurants. He said, I'll figure it out while we don't have a retirement. We've been eating it. You know, I mean, it's just, woo, scary stuff, isn't it? You're afraid of what we'll find. And that's another reason people don't do a budget. It's a thing called denial. And I'm not talking about a river in Egypt, okay? Now, cash flow plans don't work many times if you leave things out. If you leave out car repairs and the car is constantly breaking, well, guess what? If you leave out kids' clothing and they come in with their pants up to their knees, here we are heading back into school, then you've got a problem, right? When you leave things out is when you will mess your budget up. You'll crash it every time. Another reason budgets don't work is if you overcomplicate them. Now, this would be addressed to the nerds in the audience. These 17-page spreadsheets that are merely on the computer, and it takes an MBA, a master's in business, to figure out your budget plan. Nobody's going to live on that. It's too complicated to start with, or you spend every night in the computer. I mean, what kind of life is this? And for sure, the non-nerd spouse, the free spirit, is not going to participate at this level of detail. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Keep it easy. This is personal finance. This is not corporate finance. You're not trying to impress someone to get a promotion. You're just trying to keep your money from leaving on accident. That's all we're doing here. Another reason budgets don't work is you don't actually do one. Now that could be a detail. Another reason we don't have budgets that work is we do one, but it's this theory thing. It's this, oh, look at our budget, but then we don't live on the budget that we wrote down. You have to actually do one, and then you actually live like the piece of paper says, or you change the paper. Now, let me give you a hint. As you start putting together your budget, and I'm going to give you the forms and teach you the details tonight on how to do that, okay? As you start putting this together, your budget will not work the first month. It will not work. The second month, it will not work, but a little bit. About the third month, it'll start to work. Now, we've talked about having the emergency or having the budget committee meeting where the nerd and the free spirit sit down and come into agreement. That's the first draft. That's the first thing. Next week, you'll have to change that. You'll have to have an emergency budget committee meeting and make some adjustments. And then you'll have to have another one. You may have to have them every day for a while. Because basically, when you've been going along for 13 years or 7 years or 27 years and never had a plan, you still don't have a clue of how your life really looks on paper. And your first month, you're going to be lousy at it. That's okay. Keep trudging. You're on the bunny slope, okay? It's okay. Learn to ride the chairlift. Then the next month, you'll get a little better at it. And by the third month, it'll actually start to work. And that black eye that you tempted to hit your husband there, ladies, that thing will start to heal at that point, okay? So it takes about 3 months for this stuff to actually kick in and work. Reasons we really need to do a cash flow plan is a written plan removes the management by crisis from your finances. Now, many folks in here and in our course nationwide are struggling. They say, I can't do a budget, Dave. I don't have enough money to pay everything. Hey, we didn't either. We were broke. We were losing everything. We were getting sued. We were getting foreclosed on. Everything's going crazy. But what we did was we managed what we had. Now, what that means is you write down everything that you're going to do, and you do as much as you can do. In that situation, you take care of food, shelter, clothing, and transportation. We call those the 4 walls. You take care of those 4 things before you do anything else. I don't want to hear about your house being behind and you being current with MasterCard and your student loan. That's bad priorities. Food, shelter, clothing, and transportation are first. And so what we're doing is we're going to spend the money, and what we used to do is when the money ran out, you know, the list kept going, right? And we wanted to pay everyone, we just didn't have the money. You know what I'm talking about? Has anybody ever been there but me? You know what I'm saying? The money ran out before the stuff did, before the list did. We would draw a big line there. And everyone below the line that month did not get paid. I remember I had a collector call me one time and was just chewing on my ear. Calling my mother names and everything else. You know how they just, they're going crazy on me, right? And I said, well, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. You're below the line. And he said, do what? I said, you're below the line. I don't pay people that are below the line. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, we do our budget, and when the money runs out, we draw a line, and the people below the line don't get paid, and this month, you're below the line. He goes, you're kidding. I said, no, I'm not kidding. You're below the line. You don't get paid. He goes, well, I got a question. How do I get above the line? I said, you're nicer next time you call. Have a good day. Manage money. When you tell money what to do, it works harder. A budget is a money stretcher. Money goes farther when you are managing it. It's amazing. It's like manage time. How many of you have ever been to a time management seminar of any kind? And you go back. When you manage time, you get more out of it, don't you? When you manage money, you get more out of it. There's no way around it. A written plan, if actually lived on and agreed on, will remove many of the money fights from your marriage. We've talked about, and we will talk about, the unity that your marriage will have. When you come into agreement on what you're doing with your money, then you'll be winning. And the money fights will go away. A written plan, if actually lived on and agreed on, will remove much of the guilt, shame, and fear that may now be a part of buying necessities such as food or clothing. I can remember many times when we were broke, as we wrote a check at the grocery store, I had this tinge of fear inside of me that we had just spent the money that we were going to use for the electric bill. Anyone relate to that? As I wrote a clothing check for my child, which is a necessity, I wondered if I had just spent the mortgage money, because I didn't know. When you put it all down and you can see it before you write those checks, then as you write that check, you have an immense amount of peace, because there's not all this conflict and this wondering about what's happening going on. It releases stress. A written plan, if actually lived on and agreed on, will remove the bounced checks. See, a bounced check is when you write checks because there wasn't money. And then it comes back, NSF, insufficient funds. They're way too expensive. They mess up your budget big time, and you should never have a bounced check if you have a written plan, because you would never write a check that wasn't in one of the categories where you had already preordained where the money was going to go. You never write a check that doesn't come out of one of those categories, ever. If you want to change the category so you can write a check, fine. But if you're going to raise that category, you've got to lower another one, as we're going to learn, okay? That'll remove stress from your life when you get rid of the bounced checks. This living on the edge thing, this living scared all the time, this looking over my shoulder, wondering when they're going to shut down my bank account, wondering when they're going to come get me or something. I mean, this has got to stop. Life is too short to live like that. And if you'll just spend a few minutes every month without the stupid television on, and sit down and plan, and sit down and write it out, it's amazing what will happen and what will be turned loose in your life. Also, overspending will stop. Like the guy that was overspending on restaurants. He discovered when he sat down that they were overspending on that category. Now, $1,200 a month in restaurants in most households would be overspending, okay? And in some of your households, it could be a whole lot more, a whole lot less on something else. You need to look. I don't know if you're overspending on clothing. I don't know if you're overspending on entertainment. And only you can ultimately decide that. But what it makes you do is look at it in the context of your whole life. See, purchasing that leather couch might be an okay purchase. But it might not be if you look at the context of where you are and say, gosh, we don't even have any money set aside for emergencies. I don't think this leather couch is an emergency. If you're a fully funded emergency fund and you have extra money laying around, then that leather couch could be an okay purchase, right? And you might go and get a bargain on it and use your $100 bills, right? And so the whole thing starts to stack up and work when you put it in context. The easiest and most powerful way to do a budget is the zero-based plan. Zero-based means we're going to give every dollar of your income a name before the month begins. Before the month begins, the first of the month is coming up, for the rest of your life, before that month gets here, you have a term paper due. For that month, not the perfect generic month from heaven, that month never happens, does it? That's the average of all the previous months in Quicken. It doesn't happen that way, does it? You've got this month. This month might be vacation. It might be Christmas. It might be Thanksgiving. It might be wedding month, you know, where you've got all those gifts. It might be something else. Every month has its own characteristics. They have different types of utility bills, whether it's cooling or heating. So this month, you spend this month's income on paper. Income minus outgo equals exactly zero. That's a zero-based budget. And implement a thing called the envelope system. Now, this is Grandma's old system of handling cash. Sharon and I first did this in the middle of a big fight. I kept accusing her of spending too much at the grocery store. There's always this big fight. She said, I'm not overspending, you're just not giving me enough. And we're struggling back and forth, and we're having one of these yelling matches. I know you guys never do that. This was many years ago. We don't do it anymore. But we were just at each other's throat over this money stuff. It was not pretty, you know what I mean? And when finally I said, look, how much do you need for money? How much money do you need a month for food? And she said, $600, but if you can give it to me every single month and not mess with me, I can do it on $500. I said, done, but don't you dare go a penny over. And so we started on this conflict basis. We didn't start with this, honey, let's try a new concept, you know? And we started with this envelope thing, and all we did was say, okay, every payday, what are we going to set aside for food? What are we going to set aside for food? What we're going to do then is we're going to write a check for that amount. We're going to cash that check. We're going to put that cash in an envelope. And we're going to mark the envelope food. And so what normally happens is you deposit your paycheck now, you go to the grocery store and write a check, right? All I want you to do is add a step. You don't have to save up to get started on this. You just add a step. Instead of depositing your check and writing a check, you deposit your check, write a check, cash it, put the cash in an envelope. $300 cash in an envelope for this pay period for food in there. Now we buy all our food out of this envelope. And we never buy any food again except out of this envelope. Period. If you leave home and forget the food envelope, you have to go back home and get the food envelope. No cheating. And I'll tell you, food in our house means grocery store stuff. We keep it pretty simple. We have a large budget for hairspray. Now, the truth is that if that envelope gets kind of empty, and I'll give you a hint, the first time you do your food envelope, overfund it, because you're wrong, okay? You think it's less than it is. Overfund it. You can always lower it later, right? If there's a bunch of money laying around in there, you'll find something to do with it. But if you underfund it, it'll be kind of, well, there's this Ramsey diet thing going, you know? And I want you to lose weight maybe if you need to, but don't do it on this basis, okay? So the drill is, what we're going to do is we're going to put the cash in an envelope. We're going to buy all our food out of this envelope. We're not going to buy anything out of this envelope except... Now, if you get to the end of the month and there's money left over in here every single month, then you're over budgeting this category. You lower the category down a little bit, right? If it happens for just occasionally because you went to Triple Coupon Thursday and got a really good deal and there's some money left over, well, reward yourself. Go out to eat. That's food. Or go to the warehouse store and buy that 9 gallons of mustard you've always wanted. Now, this system has been around for many, many years. I didn't invent this. This has been around since the 20s. As a matter of fact, one of my most prized possessions is this. It was sent to me by a guy in Spokane, Washington. He found this at an antique store. It says budget envelopes. And it was a little envelope system where they could keep up with their cash right here inside. It's very interesting because as I was looking at it, I happened to look down and notice the calendar that was stapled to it. Here it is, 1948. Isn't that cool? And as I looked at it, I read one of the accounts that says Hawaii. You know what? I bet they got to go. Because they were telling their money what to do and they systematically saved for it. Does anybody remember a generation when you used to save for years to go on a vacation? That's a whole nother mindset that we've completely lost. Now you put it on your home equity loan. How dumb is that? I mean, the best vacation you'll ever have in your life is one that doesn't follow you home. Okay? Try the envelope system for some things. We don't do this for everything. We don't carry around big wads of cash. But in your Financial Peace University system, you've got an envelope system. We've recreated it, and we have our own program here to help you do the same thing. For some things, try it for a few things. If you're nervous about it, I'll tell you, try food and try clothing. Those are two we mess up a lot. And do your normal procedure for everything else. But try it. Weigh it in. Hey, if I'm wrong, you can always go back to your way. Let's look at the form.
So there you go. Like I said, these are a little outdated at times. He said the average household income is $40,000. That's way up since then. And then things like, I'll be honest with you guys, I think I've written maybe 3 checks in my whole life. I don't even know how to write checks. When I have to write a check, who writes it for me? Shelby writes it for me, because I don't even know how, right? Just like I said, we come from different money generations, really. But like so for that, what he was just talking about, the envelope system, that would not work for me because I don't carry cash, right? That's not what we're going to do. But budgeting is the thing I'm probably the best at. These guys make fun of me. My parents make fun of me because I budget so strictly. We'll go to a restaurant and I have budgeted the money before I've paid the money. Okay, before I give them my card, it's already in the budget. All right, because I just, that's how I do it. And you're probably not going to be that strict with it, but I want to explain how these budgets work. So is there anybody in here that is just, you're never going to use an app, you would rather do it on paper, spreadsheet? Is there anybody that would say that's you? He says, okay, I have actually these budgets, but if there's someone in your family who's willing to do it on an app, I probably wouldn't budget if I had to write it out. If I had to write it out or do a spreadsheet, I wouldn't do it. Like that, to me, that's a lot of work. I have an app on my phone that makes it so easy. Like I said, I can literally do it at a restaurant. Like I get the bill, all right, 27 bucks, boom, 27 bucks. Like I do it that fast. So that's what I want to do today. I had you guys download the EveryDollar app last week, right? That was part of the homework. I hope you did that, because what I want to do is I have it here, and we are actually going to walk through what it looks like to budget on this app. If you want to go ahead and pull that up, if you have it. If you would rather have a piece of paper, he has basically the printouts for it, and I printed it out if you guys want any copies of this. Does anybody want this? Okay. I figured there'd be a couple, so we got 3. Okay. I figured we got 3. It's the same exact thing. Basically, it's just you're doing it on. Okay, you got the app. Okay. Oh, okay. So what I like about the app and this paper, all right, and you may have to create an account. They were asking me earlier, there is a paid version. I do not use the paid version. I don't even know how much it is. Did it say how much it was, Sherry?
Yeah, it's $79.99 for the year.
For the year, how much a
but
month?
$18 if you pay it per month.
$18
So
per month.
way cheaper for the year.
Okay, way cheaper if you do the
$6
year.
a month.
When we do the money saving thing, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But so there is a paid version, right? You can do that if you want. The only difference in one of the main differences in the paid version is if you do the paid version, you actually connect it to your bank account, and whenever you spend money, you don't have to input anything. It sees it, and it pops up a notification. This money was spent, what's it for? And you just put it in the category. So it can be helpful if you want to spend that money on it. We personally don't, because I am a nerd and I'll stay on top of it. But if you want to pull that out, like you're going to have an account. It can be free. But what I like about the zero-based budget, which is what he was talking about, there's a lot of different methods for budgeting. This is, you put in how much you make, the money you're bringing in, and then you put in all your expenses where it's even. So if you make $7,000, your expenses are $7,000. That means that includes any giving, that includes any saving. All the money spent, you're going to spend all $7,000. Now, when I say spend, some of it may be saved, but you are going to, all that $7,000 has a place to go. Like he said, you are telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. You are telling every dollar, that's why it's called EveryDollar. You are telling every dollar exactly where to go before the month begins. So on your the sheets I gave you, it has a place where you can put your monthly income at the top, or in the app, you put in how much you're going to make. So for this exercise, I went completely generic. I looked up the average for everything in North Carolina. So all the bills, I tried to get as close to the average as I could, and I just used my family as kind of a template. Mom, dad, baby. So if you have multiple children, this is going to look different. If you have no children, it's going to look different. No children in the house, whatever. But I'm going to actually walk you through how this app works, if you want to pull it up so we can go through it together. So what you do at the top, you will see this section for income. And it looks different on a phone than a laptop, which is fine. But you will see your planned income right here, this category right here. All right, I'll go put it at 0. All right, so it'll start at 0. If you know, hey, my paycheck, let's say you get paid twice. I got 2 paychecks in there. My paychecks, I think this is based on like an $85,000 household income. You may be above that, you may be below that. This is what this is based on. So the paychecks that are coming in, the husbands are $22.92 and the wives are $12.50. That's just how much average man and average woman in North Carolina makes. That's where I got those numbers from. If you get paid once a month, you'll put in 1 paycheck. If you get paid every week, you'll put in a weekly paycheck. You can just put it in just like that. And as soon as the paycheck comes in, can you guys see it? You can move closer if you can't see it. As soon as the paycheck comes in, right, there should be a blue plus sign somewhere on the screen. Blue plus sign. Once you've got your paycheck and you just say it came in, you put in the amount, $22.92, and you select income. All right? And then there'll be a place where you can choose the budget item and you'll put husband first paycheck. Track. No, it's not April yet. I did April because April's the month coming up. And you'll see that it's received. Did that make sense to everybody? Yep. So the money comes in and there it is. And like I said, this is 4 paychecks. Now, some people in here probably have a fixed income. You know how much you're going to make every time. Like me, I have a fixed income. One of the reasons I didn't use our stuff is because my stuff's a little weird. I make less salary because my housing's paid for. I know that's probably not anybody else in here. So I just use this generic couple. But like I know exactly what my check is going to be every month. I'm an employee, so I know. Some of you, if you work hourly, depending on the hours you work, it may be different. If you own a business or something and you just don't know what you're going to get, the way I would plan for it is I would just pick the low end of what you would make. I would pick the low end. So if you could make between $3,000 and $4,000, I would budget for $3,000. And if you get $3,800, great. That's awesome, right? That's how I would do it if I was making this budget. But you put it in, and I went through and I just listed some necessities, okay? And I just so we can have a picture of what a budget may look like. So $7,084, I put in a tithe, 10%, $709. That's the tithe for that. That's one of the first things I put in. And he talked about if you're struggling or whatever, you make sure the 4 walls are covered. What did he say? Food, housing, transportation, and clothing. Mm-hmm. So I went through and I put those in. So mortgage or rent. You have these sections like right here. It's all going to start with 0. And you can be on the planned portion and you just click on that and you can put in whatever your mortgage or rent is. I looked up about a $250,000 loan with the taxes. It should be around $1,800 is the best I could tell. Like I said, my house is paid for. I don't pay for any of this. But I just put that in. Water, $50, $50 for gas, $165 for electricity, $20 for trash, and $50 for internet. Right? I didn't put cable in because I just started with the necessities and we'll add that stuff in later. Okay? So you just do this through all your expenses, right? You just kind of know what the payments are and you can just go in and say, I know my payment, my light bill, it's $200. You can put that in and plan for it, go in. All right? Same thing, gas. This is one of those things where you probably, if you haven't been budgeting, you probably don't know how much you spend on gas. If you live far away from your job, this could be way higher than $300. If you live close, this could be less than $300. I don't know what everybody spends. This is actually more than Shelby and I spend because she stays home, but I thought this might be close. I don't really know. But you just put in kind of what that is. And again, I haven't put in any maintenance yet because we're just covering the necessities first. Then groceries. So $750, maybe that seems high to you, maybe that seems low to you. But you can put that in as a plan. Again, if you've not been budgeting, you have no idea how much money you spend on food. Whatever you think it is, add $200-300 to it. Because like he said, your first month of budgeting, you're not going to get it right. You're going to be off. Things are going to be misplaced. Like you're gonna think, oh, we probably spend, $100 going out to eat, and then you'll see, no, I spent $600 going out to eat or something. Like it just catches up with you. So I haven't even put in restaurants yet because we're just doing necessities first, and then we'll go back in and do those other things. Cell phone plan, that's a necessity at this point. Like it may not used to have been, but at this point, cell phone's a necessity. $200, $250, whatever it is for your family. Child care, if both of us work, we would pay child care, and you know what that is for your family. That's an expense. You probably know what it is. I put $750 for one kid for a month. I think that's might even be low, right? That's like between $150 and $200 a week. So that's probably close for one kid. Now, if you got 3 kids, you're talking about 3 times that if they're all in childcare. So that's a big expense, and that definitely varies on depending on where you're at. Miscellaneous, that's a little buffer. I put in $200, and I haven't put in any medicines or doctor visits, but if you know, hey, we have medication, it's $45 a month. If you know, hey, let's say our kid has a doctor's appointment this month and it's a $50 copay or whatever your copay is, you put that in. Because like you said, every month is different. I'm just kind of going really basic right here. And then your insurances, you put what those payments are. How many of you actually, now let me just get this idea. How many of you still write checks to pay your bills? Or how many just have it just comes out of your account?
Which one are you asking?
How many write checks to pay bills? You actually write checks to pay
That's the only one we write.
Okay, but like light bill and stuff, it's just automatically coming out. Okay, I was just interested to know. Yeah. And even on these, if you want to, I think there's a spot where when you do these, you can actually put in your due dates. So I don't do that, I just know them in my head. But you can actually put in your due dates if you have trouble remembering when things are due. That is an option on this app that you can do. And so if you've gone through those, you've gone through your insurances, your house, just grocery store, no food yet. We get through there and you can see in the top, we have $1,040 left in the budget, okay? Maybe that sounds good, maybe that sounds bad, but I haven't put in yet the debts. So you can list your debts in this app as well. So this family, I just said, these cars, this is exactly what we had when we were married, except the cars are switched. I had the more expensive one. But we owed $9,000 on one, $17,000 on another. We actually had more college loans than that. And then I put a credit card. So this is just I'm just throwing debt out there. This may not be what yours looks like. It may be pretty close. I don't know. But once you know what the minimum payments for those are, a credit card with this much would be about maybe $110, $115, something like that. You put that in. That's what you plan to pay. Once that car payment for us was $215, that's probably pretty close. That car payment for us was like $285, that's probably pretty close. And then your college loan may be $450 for that much, something like that. Once you put in all that, you can see all we've done is necessities and our debts at this point, and we are $20 over budget. Now, I believe, okay, when you're budgeting, once you get it down and once you get it nailed and you feel comfortable with it, you will feel like you got a pay raise because you're being you're really focusing on where your money goes. But if this is the situation you're in right now, it may be. I don't know where everybody is. Like he talked about, budgeting is really scary. When you think you might get here and this might be red right here, and all we've done is cover necessities, we haven't even got to any restaurants or any entertainment. Or I think I had like $40 for subscriptions in. No, I didn't even put subscriptions in yet or whatever. If you get here, I know that can be scary. I know that's why some people don't want to budget. That's probably why I didn't want to. I didn't budget right when we first got married. Right? I had to be kind of talked into it. I know this can be scary, and this may be your situation. But if I was in this situation, something's got to give. Either we've got to figure out, one, how to spend less money or make more money. If the budget's not working, if the math isn't working, we've got to figure out, something's got to happen, because we can't just be spending way more. This is without saving anything. This is without This is without making any adjustments. Maybe this is you. Maybe you do your budget and you've got $7,000 left over. I don't know what everybody's got. I don't know your situation. But getting on this plan, you can at least focus in and start to really figure out what step, maybe even where you are in this, on these baby steps, and you can really start knowing what you need to focus on. Okay? So if I was in this situation, what I would do, again, we haven't even gone through and done any restaurants or anything with vacation or anything like that. What I would do is I would go through and see if there was anywhere you could cut back. There's probably not that much. So the only other option is for a few months, until we can get to a stable situation, we may have to find a way to make a little more money. Whether that, like I said, Facebook Marketplace is great. If you got, if you have anything that you can sell, if you got, 3 cars and one's an old beater that you could get $2,100 for, if you're in this situation, I'd probably think about selling that car, right? You're going to have to find ways to make the budget work. I'm hoping not everyone's in this situation, but maybe you are. But how you use the app is you just go in, let's say it's the 3rd and your life insurance is due on the 3rd. You just go right here, you click that blue button, your life insurance is $75, it comes out of your account. You just click $75, scroll down, life insurance, and you track it, and it's good. And then you see there's $0 remaining on that right there, in that app. I really like using this app because it's just so easy. Like I said, I literally have it on my phone. Like, when we go to the grocery store, I see the bill and I say, okay, so, let's say Shelby goes to the grocery store, she spends $145 at the store for a week or something. She sends it to me, I say, all right, $145 right there, groceries, boom. And it tells you right here, actually in the phone app, it'll tell you, I think it says planned, spent, and remaining, I think is what it says in the phone. So you can go see what you planned. You say we planned 70 or 750. You can say, I think it's right here actually. Let me see if I can find it somewhere. Oh yeah, planned right here. We planned 750 for groceries right there. We've spent 145, so you can see what you spent right there really quickly. And what do we have remaining? You can go right here. We have 605 remaining. So it's really simple. You don't have to pull out any calculators, right? That's the stuff I wouldn't do. If I had to do it on an old school Excel spreadsheet, I just wouldn't do it. It would just not be something that I'd be willing to do. But when it's this simple, it's in my pocket, and I can do it so quick, and I don't even think about it that much. It's just like, I just plug it in, and it lets us know where we're tracking for the month. So, like I said, do you have to do a budget? No. You don't have to. It is not a necessity. The Bible does not say you have to do a budget, right? But I think it's the best way to know where you're at with your financial situation and what you're actually focusing on. Like I said, some of us may think we spend $200 eating out each month and you actually spend $600, and you're like, why do we never have any money at the end of the month? And that's why, because you're spending it all, right? This is a great app to use. If you have any questions about budgeting, that is something I can help you with. If you have questions about what accounts to put your money in for retirement, I'm not your guy, okay? When we get to those, we'll probably just watch more video and I'll just let him discuss it because he knows way better than I do. But if you have questions about a monthly budget, if you have questions about, how should we plan for this or how should we do this, come ask me. I would love to help with those because this is actually something that I'm not a super genius, but this is something I'm pretty good at. I'm pretty good at budgeting and getting it to where it can be in a manageable spot. And just so you know, again, once you've, if you use this app, let's see, these options. I just want to show you this. Let's say you pay the $110 on your credit cards, right? The minimum payment's $110. Let's say you pay it. Let's say you pay the $215 for your car. I'm just going to fill all these in. Where's that? Husband car. I gave the husband the cheaper car because Wife's supposed to get the other car, right? And then, all right, and I'll do this one. Yeah. Everybody's looking around now. Okay, so you made those payments this month. When you go to May, the app has kept up with that. Now it's $110 less, and you can actually track your progress month after month just right in the app, because it keeps track of all those things, and you can actually see how you do as you go. So, again, do you have to do this? No. But what I would suggest, if you've never done it, if you've never tried it, and you just are curious about how much you're spending, you want to see where you maybe can cut back, where you can spend a little more. April starts Tuesday? I would suggest at least going through it, sitting down, put the kids to bed tonight, go sit down after and say, because a lot of these other things, right? Let's say this wasn't -20. Let's say after all these things you have $3,000 left in the budget, right? Let's say whatever. I don't know your situation. Things like restaurants, things like clothing, things like fun money, things like entertainment, those are things that the two of you need to sit down and decide upon. This is how much we're going to spend on it. Maybe it's we're going to try to do without it for a while, or maybe it's like we're not going to change any of that stuff. We're going to spend this much on subscriptions. Maybe we find a subscription we're not using and we delete it. That's a big thing. People do that all the time. They pay for subscriptions they don't use all the time, and that can be, $15 a month. That may seem like nothing, but if you do it for a whole year, I mean, you're talking about that stuff adds up, right? So those types of things. How much are we going to spend on restaurants? How much are we going to spend on subscriptions? How much are we going to spend on our pet care? I know that's a big one for a lot of people. Those are conversations that you have together, right? You're not going to sit down and discuss how much are we going to spend on a light bill this month, because that just is what it is, right? But some of those categories that you can determine, I would challenge you, at least for the month of April, try it again. You're not going to be you're not going to know exactly how much you spend on everything, but this is a great place to start. And I know these conversations are tough when you're saying, hey, we may not need to go out as much this month. Hey, maybe we need to dial back what we spend on clothes this much, right? I know those can be tough, but this is where it starts. If we want to start actually gaining progress, we want to start actually winning with money. And then if you figure out where you're at on your budget, you can figure out where you're at on these steps if you want to follow these. And next week we're going to talk about how do we start paying down debt. That's what we're going to talk about next week. So, like I said, April's coming up. I wanted to do this before the month started so we could actually try this for a month and see how we do with that. I got to sit down and do our budget for this month later anyway, so we'll be doing the same thing you guys are. But that would be my suggestion to you guys. And again, if you have any questions about this, any questions about how to use the app, or the paper I gave you is about the same thing. You put your income and then how much you're going to spend. That obviously takes a lot more effort doing it that way. But if there's any questions, I'd love for you guys to come up and ask me or talk to me, and I will help any way I can. It is 7:17. I want to be done by 7:15, but that's pretty good. If no one has any other questions, I'm going to close this in prayer, and we will be done. And again, if you have any other questions, just one-on-one, come ask me. If you do your budget next week, you have some questions, come ask me, and I would love to help you and try to figure this out, because I want us all to win. I want us all to win. So if nobody has anything else, I will close this in prayer. Lord, we thank you for the gifts that you give us. God, I pray that we would be good stewards, that we would figure out how we're spending our money, and we would have a plan on how we can best get to a place of peace and best get to a place where we can honor you. We thank you for all your many blessings. We pray that we will honor you with it. In your holy and precious name we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you, guys. Dad, have you met Mark?